governor's staff here, as well as the Republican members of the House and Senate. Clearly, we believe in this being incredibly open and transparent what we're saying, and we're thrilled that you all are here today. We'd love to answer any questions, and we'll just open it right up.
Earlier today, the President gave his proposals on gun control. I'm wondering two things. One, what your general reaction is to what the President presented. And number two, there had been some talk earlier on about a task force or some kind of a study to take up this issue in this legislative session. So where do we stand on that?
Well, with the President's proposals, we have new information about the direction that the President is proposing to go. With closure on Friday, we're going to have more information in terms of what the members of the legislature are putting in. Once we have a better understanding of what all those bills are, we'll be able to craft a comprehensive approach to whatever we decide to do. But I think that there's still interest in making sure that we're addressing any concerns that still may be out there. We do know that largely this is a federal issue, but there are things on the state level that we might want to take a look at. But again, it needs to be done comprehensively. Stakeholders at the table, folks on the front line that deal with issues related to public safety, mental health issues, school safety. We want to make sure that it is clearly a comprehensive approach.
In terms of the governor's plan that he outlined yesterday, I guess now that you guys have had a day to really look at it and digest it, what are your thoughts on it?
So yesterday, the liquor contract to pay back the student debt was released. Excuse me, did I say student debt? Hospital debt. Wow. we all have too much student debt too. The hospital debt. What we found interesting in the plan are a bunch of things. One, that he's using this idea of borrowing money to pay back the hospitals. And so for a long time, this governor has been very much against borrowing money, and now he's going to borrow money, potentially put Maine taxpayers at risk to pay back Wall Street to use this revenue bond. Number two, it's very thin on details. The proposal that for the state to take over the liquor contract seems very aggressive with the details that we've seen. To double the revenue, from one year to the next seems very, very aggressive, and so we're looking forward to understanding more. Third, it could potentially mean the loss of hundreds of jobs. Right now, Maine Beverage, direct and indirect jobs, has 150 jobs. So we want to take his proposal, which I've highlighted some of the weaknesses that we're feeling, and then also look at other proposals that we know Democrats know are out there. One being just renewing with Maine Beverage for another 10 years, making sure that we get the best contract for Maine taxpayers. The second, put out an RFP. That's what the Appropriations Committee actually said we should be doing, put out an RFP, let it be competitive, let's see who's out there who really wants to bid on this contract. And then third, potentially we sell the liquor asset entirely and see what that could generate for the state. So there are many options. The governor's option is one. If we can find out more information, I'm sure we will, get more details. If that's the right approach, I'm sure Democrats will get behind it because we want to pay back our hospitals. But if it's not the right approach, then there are many other options for Mainers and for us to look at.
And where is paying back the hospitals on the Democrats' to-do list, I guess, would be is it like how high up on the priority list? Something's pretty high up on the governor's and the Republicans' list. Is it equally as high on your list as well?
We want to make sure that we're meeting all of our obligations, and what we want to make sure we do is whenever we consider new revenue into the state, we have to, particularly with the news of the governor's budget last Friday, whenever we talk about new revenue, we need to talk about it in the context of what the governor just proposed, and that is a major tax shift on property owners in the state and small businesses. It hurts our economy, it crushes the middle class, and we need to make sure whenever we're talking about new revenue, we need to prioritize that in a way that is fair and equitable. Paying back the hospitals is an important thing. For Democrats, we've been doing that for a number of years, over $700 million in the last administration. We need to make sure that we do pay the hospitals back, but we need to make sure that we're doing that in a fiscally responsible way, given the governor's proposal to shift taxes onto the middle class.
What are your thoughts about the indexing on the state income tax the governor's got in his budget?
Well, this is a 900-page document. We're starting to understand more of it daily. But for the governor to come out, or the commissioner that day to come out and say there'll be no new taxes, when now we're starting to see that there are taxes that are very clear, like the indexing, and then those that are indirect, like Democrats announced right away that this is over $400 million of a tax shift to our local communities. I don't think that Mainers truly understand what that's going to mean to their property taxes or the cuts in services and the people losing their jobs. These are middle-class families that all of a sudden are getting pink slips because of this proposed budget. So we're trying to understand more and more every day. We weren't shared this document in advance. The first time we saw it was when you saw it. So we are still unbundling a very complicated document. But so far it seems like the middle class and Maine families are really going to struggle with what is being proposed.
What are some of your ideas? I've heard there's talk about possible putting all revenues, all tax revenues on the table, including, say, hotel taxes, meal taxes, things like that.
So Democrats from day one want to make sure that Mainers understand that we are in this fiscal mess. We are in this fiscal crisis because of the governor and because of his unpaid tax cut. $350 million that he never paid for. It's a gimmick. He didn't even put it in last year's budgets. He put it in this year's budget. It started on January 1st, and it's unpaid for. So now we have to make decisions. And the decisions now are being crafted by the governor again because he put out his budget, and these are his choices and his priorities. We're going to have a balanced approach, and that balance is going to include cuts that are going to have to be made. We're going to have to look at efficiencies, and we're going to have to look at revenues. When we look at cuts and revenues, we want to make sure that we minimize the effects on middle class Mainers and small businesses, because we know they're taking the brunt of our tax structure right now. So we can't have a budget that further puts more pressure on them. And so when we look at this balanced approach of taxes, of cuts, of efficiencies, that's how we're going to view it, making sure that we protect the middle class and small businesses.
As it relates to the revenue discussion, the governor has put the first proposal on the table in his most recent budget. As President Alfond said, the governor put forward a proposal last time, unpaid for, around taxes, and the governor started that conversation by shifting the tax burden in the sense, I mean, literally raising taxes on property owners. I mean, I think that's the distinction here. That's what, if you own a home, if you own property, certainly pay attention to this. This is going to impact you in a very, very significant way. And we are going to have to go through a very difficult process to decide what is the most responsible, balanced, fair approach. And that's going to include a conversation about tax cuts that were passed last legislature that were not paid for, that largely benefit the wealthy.
You talked about revenues. Are there any plans to raise taxes on income taxes on wealthier end of the spectrum or other lines?
I think when we think about revenues, we're going to look at all of our options, and then through the lens of making sure that we do not hurt middle-class families and small businesses. I mean, we're going to repeat the same thing that we repeated during the campaign. Mainers put Democrats back in power because they wanted us to focus on the economy, improving our business climate, and making sure that we grow this economy from the middle class up, not the top down. And so we are going to continue doing that when we look at revenues this session. And I think that Mainers expect us to do that.
Any thoughts about the Criminal Justice Committee just got a briefing from the Corrections Commissioner on many proposals, including the possible prison bond. Do you have any thoughts about the size of that or how it might be used, given what the past discussion has been about private prisons and so forth?
So with this proposal, again, out of the blue, we had no idea it was coming. Talking to Senator Guzowski and Representative Diamond, they're, I guess, a little confused by this being such a priority of the administration. It doesn't seem like we have a demand problem for more beds. So for us, we're going to evaluate it. Clearly, when we're spending money, we want to make sure we spend it smartly. And what I hear a lot, including from the business community, is why aren't we spending more money up front in Head Start, early childhood, child care, instead of spending money at the tailpipe? And so I think we're going to continue having that discussion about early investments this session, which I hopefully will reduce the need for any more beds in our prisons.
So we have about 5 more minutes. I want to give folks on the phone, if you're still there, did you have any questions? Scott? Susan?
No, I didn't have any questions on, is Senator Jackson there by any chance?
He's not here right now. We can connect later about that.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I just want to understand if those lawmakers were hearing, anything from the smaller towns in Maine regarding the revenue sharing. We've heard a lot from, city, large. I'm just wondering what folks are hearing. We're starting to hear some mill rate increases, flat funds from towns, some mill rate increases. That could be substantial, and I'm just wondering if they have any reaction to that.
Scott, this is Seth Berry. Thanks for the question. I can't speak for all of the members, but I certainly have heard significant complaints from the 3 municipalities that I represent already. They are still going through all of the different measures that push the tough decisions onto the municipalities to understand the cumulative total impact on property tax payers. And they're shocked, they're horrified, and they really want us to come up with alternatives at the state level so that they don't have to pay for the bills that the state rightfully owns. The Maine Municipal Association is still drilling down as well into the sort of the town-specific data around this, and there are estimates, but they don't encompass all of the costs. Unfortunately, it's a very, very significant push. If you were to take that $425 million and divide it up, it would be well over $300 per Mainer, for every man, woman, and child in the state. But that varies a lot by municipality. The property tax impacts the middle class the most. It least reflects the ability to pay, and it's not the way to grow our economy from the middle out. It's not the way to put money in the pockets of middle class Mainers.
Thank you.
Yes, Scott, Jeff McCabe from Skowhegan. Just in response to that question, right out of the gate in Skowhegan, we're looking at a $1.7 million cut, and that's without even reading into this document further than just sort of what's on the surface. And that's a huge shift to us in Skowhegan, and just coming off the campaign trail, our taxpayers will not be able to make up that difference, and I really worry about our aging population especially.
Susan, are you still on?
Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Well, Representative McCabe is there. I'm also interested in his President's gun proposals today.
Sure. Thank you, Susan, for the question. At first glance, there's some things in this proposal that are very similar as far as to the discussions that have been occurring both here in the State House and outside of the State House and some of the stakeholder groups that are sort of popping up around the state. And I think for us, with Friday being cloture, it'll be interesting to see how many bills we have. We really don't have a good grasp of how many bills are out there. We know that the committee will have their work cut out for them, but at first glance, there's many things in this proposal that I think fall in line with the discussions that we've been having in leadership. I reached out across the aisle. Some of those discussions with those folks are very similar to what we're seeing in the President's proposal as well.
Matt and Matt, did you have a question? You're good. Okay. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you. We're going to sign off on this end. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you.